The movie begins with Sohee, a student practicing her dance routine. After the rehearsal, she goes to meet her friend Rue, who is streaming from her smartphone. At a cafe, a guy comments on the trend of constant live streams, where fans send donations to attractive girls. Sohee confronts him, putting him in his place and scaring both the troublemaker and the staff. At college, her professor informs her that she's being sent as an intern to the support center of a major internet provider. Sohee meets her friend Tae to organize a dance battle and share the news. On Monday, she starts her job at the call center, where the shift manager, Jun, greets the newcomers. Ji shows the intern how to take calls and respond using prompts. Sohee notices that the employees don't really help clients, but instead try to persuade them to continue using the provider's services. At the end of the shift, the supervisor reprimands the team via video call for poor performance. Soon Sohee starts taking client calls herself. One disgruntled customer becomes verbally abusive when offered additional services. The rudeness upsets Sohee, but Jun encourages her to meet at least half of her performance quota. During her lunch break, Sohee meets with her professor to sign some documents and complains that her job is terrible. After receiving her first paycheck, she notices that the amount is less than stated in the contract. When she asks why, Jun explains that the contract stipulates a reduced payment if the intern fails to meet the quota. While celebrating her earnings with friends, Sohee discusses the high turnover rate and begins to consider leaving the job herself. One day, a customer's angry tirade leaves a fellow intern in shock. Jun takes over the call, but the dissatisfied client frustrates him as well, leading to a complaint to higher management. The boss orders Jun to personally visit the client to smooth things over, warning that things could get worse otherwise. During a break, Sohee sees Tae being bullied by a senior colleague. Her free time ends, and she leaves. Back at work, her manager pressures her to sell clients new plans. Things worsen when overtime begins. One of the clients flirts with Sohee, which infuriates her. Jun sends her home, staying behind in the empty office. On her way home, Sohee stops by the dance studio where she used to train to check on her friend's progress. The next morning, she walks to work through the freshly fallen snow. A janitor notices a dead man shift manager Jun inside a parked car. Due to the incident, both management and the police visit the office to investigate. Shortly afterward, a new manager arrives, immediately announcing that the work plan remains unchanged and it's time to get back to work. However, Sohee struggles to bring herself to sit at her desk. Later at the memorial service, Sohee meets Chun's widow. It turns out that employees were forbidden from attending the funeral, but Sohee disobeyed the order. She mentions that Jun genuinely cared about his subordinates at work. Everyone is told to sign a statement for a bonus, claiming that Chun's complaints about workplace issues were unfounded. Sohee puts the document in her desk drawer. The new manager reprimands the team for poor performance, noting that Sohee's results are the worst. This affects her salary, leaving her frustrated. She even argues with Rue, claiming that being a blogger is not a real job. However, when the management pressures her to sign a statement dismissing Chun's complaints, Sohee reluctantly agrees and receives a bonus envelope in return. Sohee begins working hard to earn more money. She shares her tricks with her colleagues, but they warn her that exceeding the quota could lead to an increase in targets. Not even a call from a grieving father who lost his son deters her. Despite the client's sorrow, she attempts to sell him additional services. However, when the paycheck arrives, she discovers that she has been underpaid again. The manager explains that the company does not pay bonuses to interns immediately, as a precaution to ensure they don't quit. While celebrating with colleagues at a bar, Sohee discusses salaries with them. It turns out that no intern is paid above a certain limit. A colleague calls Sohee an idiot for overachieving her targets, which earns them a slap from her. After this, Sohee stops persuading clients and simply fulfills their requests for service cancellations. This engages the manager, leading to another argument that escalates into a physical fight. Unable to contain herself, Sohee ends up being suspended from work without pay for 3 days. On the first day of her suspension, she gets drunk with a friend at a karaoke bar until she's sick. Rue notices that her friend isn't sick from drinking. Her wrists are cut. The girl is rushed to the hospital. When her parents pick her up, she says she wants to quit her job, but they ignore her. Later, the girl speaks with the teacher who arranged her internship. He convinces her to return to work to preserve the school's employment rate statistics for graduates. On her last day off, she drinks alcohol again with her friend. Rue's brother, Do-ho, joins them. Concerned for her, he offers to help, but she declines. She tries to contact Tae, who does not answer her calls. Frustrated, she goes to a cafe to drink beer. On her way home, alone and on foot, Sohee stops by the reservoir and stares at the water. When it begins to snow, she slowly descends toward the water. The next morning, the police pull her frozen body from the reservoir. Detective Eugene and her partner inspect the scene. The body is sent to the morgue for identification, and her parents are summoned. Unable to hold back her grief, the mother collapses in tears. The police discover that Tay was the last person Sohee spoke to. Detectives search her room for a suicide note or any clues. They then visit the notorious call center. When asked about her suspension, the manager conceals the fight over the bonus, offering generic explanations instead. After collecting Sohee's personal belongings, the detectives prepare to file a standard report. Suddenly, one of her colleagues catches up with them and mentions another intern, Yoon, who previously took his own life. Eugene reopens Jun's case, uncovering that the previous manager had left a note describing the exploitation of interns and the poor working conditions. Despite this, the case was closed after an out-of-court settlement with all parties involved. The detectives interview Jun's widow, who reveals that the company's lawyers pressured her into settling, claiming she wouldn't receive any compensation if the case went to court since her husband didn't die at work. Moreover, his reputation was posthumously tarnished with accusations of theft, infidelity, and gambling. Reconstructing events, Eugene visits the diner where Sohee had her last meal and orders the same dish. Later, she reviews footage from her dance rehearsal and notices Sohee in the background. She doesn't seem depressed. They were in the same dance group, just at different times. Eugene goes to the dance studio to speak with Sohee's fellow dancers, but gains no valuable information. The investigation leads Eugene to a former colleague of Sohee, with whom she had a disagreement at a corporate event. The woman reveals that Sohee became disillusioned with the job after not receiving her earned bonus. Additionally, management forbade interns from discussing Jun's case under the threat of termination. Later, Sohee's father brings the detective her phone and payslip. Despite constant overtime and late hours, as shown in her messages, the girl was paid a pittance. Discussing her previously cut wrists, the father does not admit that she had talked about quitting. With all the evidence collected, the detectives confront the management of the company responsible for customer support. The company representatives attribute the overtime to the intern's personal desire to meet targets. They also claim that the unpaid bonuses were simply delayed, as stated in the contract. Furthermore, the management blames the college for assigning them an unstable intern from a dysfunctional family. The police chief orders Eugene to stop turning a straightforward case into an investigation of a conspiracy between colleges and corporations. But Eugene refuses to back down. She visits Rue and finds her drunk. The detective takes her to the hospital and questions her about why she dropped out of college. Rue wanted to leave the internship but found it impossible to quit. Before parting, Rue tells Eugene that she is not to blame for her friend's death. Eugene's partner discovers that Rue had to drink with colleagues every evening during her internship, which he couldn't handle. Eugene suspects that many companies exploit cheap labor through young interns. The detectives question the teacher responsible for arranging internships. He admits that he is also pressured by corporations to ensure students are placed. The detectives summon the deputy principal. It turns out that many students are placed in unrelated jobs just for the sake of placement. Eugene accuses the educators of profiting from this system, but they deny it. The deputy principal calls Sohee short-temper, which earns him a punch to the jaw from the detective. The police chief orders Eugene to stop the investigation, but she accuses him of incompetence, creates a scene, and storms out. She heads to the municipal student internship department to understand how the system operates. They explain that the bureaucratic machine is indifferent to personal tragedies and only works based on dry statistics. Only the Ministry of Education can make changes. Reviewing the autopsy report, Eugene asks the mother if she knew Sohee danced, but the mother had no idea, which adds to her pain. As Eugene leaves the morgue, Tay calls her to arrange a meeting. He explains that his internship at a factory was also difficult, but there was no one to talk to about it. Soon Sohee's funeral takes place. Eugene attends, and during the ceremony, she is informed that Sohee's phone was found in the water. Before her death, Sohee erased all data from it, leaving only one video of her dancing. Watching the rehearsal, Eugene breaks down in tears, mourning a life so tragically and unjustly lost, full of hopes and dreams. The film ends here. Thank you for watching until the end. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new videos.